The galaxy had known peace for 300 years. The Covenant of 12, signed by 12 spacefaring civilizations, had promised protection to all developing worlds. No advanced species would interfere with primitive planets. No weapons would rain down on species that had not yet reached the stars. The treaty was sacred. At least, it was supposed to be. Ambassador Veleth of the Korethi Empire stood before the Galactic Council, his blue scales catching the artificial light of the chamber. His voice was smooth like oil as he addressed the assembled representatives. The primitive species on Karath 7 pose no threat to us. Their resources, however, are valuable. We propose a simple extraction operation. They will not even understand what is happening. The council chamber fell silent. Representatives from 11 other species exchanged uncomfortable glances. The Nethkai delegate, a tall being with 4 arms, shifted in her seat. The Varax ambassador cleared his throat but said nothing. The Prill representative simply looked away. "This violates the covenant," someone said from the back of the chamber. The voice was firm and carried across the room like thunder. Every head turned toward the human section. Captain Elena Vasquez stood there, her uniform crisp and her dark eyes burning with quiet anger. Behind her sat 3 other human officers, their faces unreadable. Veleth laughed softly. The humans, always so concerned with rules. "Tell me, Captain, what will your small fleet do about it? You have perhaps 50 ships. We have thousands." Elena did not smile. "The Imperial fleet does not measure strength in numbers alone, Ambassador. The humans are newcomers to this council," the Nethkai delegate said carefully. "Perhaps they do not understand how things work in the galaxy." "We understand perfectly," Elena replied. "We understand that you signed a treaty. We understand that you gave your word. And we understand that your word means nothing when it becomes inconvenient." The chamber erupted in angry voices. Species that had been silent moments ago now found their courage. They shouted at the human delegation. They called them naive, foolish, and dangerous. But Elena remained calm. She had expected this reaction. 3 weeks later, the Korethi fleet arrived at Karath 7. 12 massive warships descended through the atmosphere toward the planet's surface. Below them, the primitive inhabitants looked up at the sky with fear. They did not have the technology to fight back. They did not even understand what was coming. The Korethi commander, Admiral Torath, watched the planet grow larger on his view screen. He felt nothing for the creatures below. They were obstacles to profit, nothing more. His orders were clear: extract the rare minerals. If the natives interfered, eliminate them. "Sir," his tactical officer said suddenly, "we are detecting an unknown vessel entering the system." Torath frowned. "Identify it. It appears to be human, sir." "A single ship." The admiral laughed out loud. "One ship? Are they serious?" "Let them watch. Let them report back to their council. It will teach them the reality of power in this galaxy." The human vessel was called the ISS Prometheus. It was not a large ship by galactic standards. Its hull was dark gray, almost black, and it moved through space with an elegance that seemed almost predatory. On its bridge, Captain Elena Vasquez studied the Korethi fleet on her display. "Captain," her first officer said, "they outnumber us 12 to 1. Our orders were to observe and report." Elena nodded slowly. "Those were our orders from the council. But our orders from the Imperial fleet are different." She pressed a button on her command chair. Her voice echoed through every channel, reaching both her crew and the Korathi fleet below. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the ISS Prometheus, representing the Terran Imperial fleet. Korathi vessels, you are in violation of the Covenant of 12. You have entered the protected space of a developing world with hostile intent. You have one chance to withdraw. There will be no second warning." Admiral Torath stared at his communication screen in disbelief. Then he began to laugh again. "This human female threatens us? With one ship?" He turned to his weapons officer. Destroy them. Show the galaxy what happens when humans interfere in matters beyond their understanding. The Korathi flagship fired first. A beam of concentrated plasma shot toward the Prometheus, enough energy to vaporize a small moon. It never reached its target. The Prometheus moved. It moved faster than any ship the Korathi had ever seen. One moment it was there. The next, it was somewhere else. The plasma beam passed through empty space. Then the Prometheus returned fire. What happened next would be studied by military academies across the galaxy for centuries. The human ship did not fight like other vessels. It did not trade shots at a distance. Instead, it dove directly into the Korathi formation, weaving between the massive warships with impossible precision. Each time it passed a Korathi vessel, something happened. Systems failed. Shields collapsed. Engines went dark. The human ship carried weapons that the galaxy had never seen before. Focused energy bursts that bypassed shields entirely. Projectiles that moved at speeds that defied known physics. In 7 minutes, 11 Korathi warships were disabled. Not destroyed, but rendered completely helpless. Their weapons were offline. Their engines were dead. They drifted in space like metal coffins. Only the flagship remained operational. Admiral Torath watched his fleet fall apart around him with growing terror. His hands shook as he gripped the arms of his command chair. "How?" he whispered. "This is impossible." The Prometheus came to a stop directly in front of his ship. On his view screen, Captain Vasquez appeared. Her face was calm, almost peaceful. "Admiral Torath," she said, "you have one choice remaining. Surrender your vessel and withdraw from this system or join your fleet in darkness." "You would not dare destroy us," Torath said, though his voice trembled. "The Council would." "The Council does nothing," Elena interrupted. "The Council watches as treaties are broken. The Council speaks empty words while innocent species burn. But the Imperial fleet is not the Council. We do not speak. We act." She leaned forward slightly. "Humanity signed the Covenant of 12 in good faith. We believed that civilized species would honor their promises. We were wrong about the other species. But we were not wrong about ourselves. When we give our word, we keep it. When we sign a treaty, we enforce it. Not because it benefits us, not because we have something to gain, but because it is right." Admiral Torath lowered his head. For the first time in his long career, he understood that he had made a terrible mistake. He had confused human patience with human weakness. "We surrender," he said quietly. The news of Korath 7 spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The Korathi had retreated in shame. Their fleet had been humiliated by a single human vessel. But more importantly, the primitive species on that distant world would continue to evolve in peace. They would never know how close they had come to extinction. The Galactic Council held an emergency session. Representatives screamed at the human delegation. They accused humanity of aggression, of violating galactic norms, of acting without authorization. Captain Vasquez sat quietly through all of it. When the chamber finally fell silent, she rose to speak. 300 years ago, you signed the Covenant of 12. You promised to protect the weak. You promised to give developing species a chance to grow. You promised peace, but your promises were lies. Every decade, one of you breaks the treaty. Every decade, another primitive world suffers. And every decade, this council does nothing but talk. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each representative in turn. Humanity has been watching. We have been learning. We joined your council hoping to find allies who shared our values. Instead, we found hypocrites who speak of honor while practicing cruelty. The Nethkai delegates stood up. You have no right to judge us. You have been in space for barely 2 centuries. We have ruled these stars for thousands of years. Then you have had thousands of years to develop ethics, Elena replied. And you have failed. She pressed a button on her wristband. Behind her, a holographic display flickered to life. It showed a map of the galaxy, with hundreds of points marked in red. These are all the violations of the Covenant in the past 50 years. Each red dot represents a world that was invaded, exploited, or destroyed by one of you. 247 developing species have been affected. 32 have been completely wiped out. The chamber went completely silent. Humanity cannot change the past, Elena continued. But we can change the future. From this day forward, the Imperial fleet will enforce the Covenant. Not because you ask us to. Not because this council authorizes it, but because someone must. And you have proven that you will not. This is a declaration of war, Dvorak's ambassador said, his voice shaking. No, Elena said. This is a declaration of law. We do not seek conquest. We do not want your worlds or your resources. We only want what you promised 300 years ago. Peace for the innocent, protection for the weak, honor for the covenant you signed. She walked toward the exit of the chamber. Any species that honors the treaty has nothing to fear from humanity. But any species that breaks, it will answer to the Imperial fleet. We have 50 ships today. We will have 500 in a decade. And we will be everywhere, watching, waiting, ready to act when you will not. She paused at the door and looked back one final time. The Covenant was your idea. The enforcement will be ours. 10 years passed after that day. The galaxy changed in ways that no one could have predicted. Some species tried to challenge humanity's declaration. The Marth Collective sent a fleet of 300 ships against a human colony. 17 human vessels responded. The Marth Collective no longer existed as a military power. The Nefkai attempted to secretly destroy a developing world before it could be protected. A human patrol found them. The Nefkai homeworld lost orbital bombardment capability for the next century as a consequence. One by one, the great powers of the galaxy learned a simple truth. Humanity was not interested in ruling them. Humanity was not interested in taking their wealth. Humanity simply believed in keeping promises. And they would make any sacrifice to ensure the promises were kept. The primitive species across the galaxy never learned the name of their protectors. They continued to grow and evolve in peace, looking up at the stars and wondering what wonders waited for them. They did not know that silent guardians watched over them. But someday, when they finally reached the stars themselves, they would learn the story. They would learn how a species called humanity stood alone against the galaxy, not for power, not for glory, but for a simple principle that the universe had forgotten. A promise is a promise, and humanity never breaks its word. The children of those protected worlds would eventually find their way to the stars. They would join the Galactic Council. They would meet humans for the first time. And they would ask the question that every new species asked. Why did you protect us? We had nothing to offer you. We could not help you. We could not even thank you. The human answer was always the same. Because you deserved the chance. Because the strong should protect the weak. Because that is what civilization means. And in that moment, those young species would understand why the galaxy had changed. They would understand why the old powers had finally learned to honor their treaties. They would understand why peace had finally come to last. Not because fear forced it, not because power demanded it, but because one species had shown the galaxy what honor truly meant. The Pact nations had written the treaties, but it took humanity to make those words mean something real.